Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into Notre Dame's unbelievable Orange Bowl win over Penn State.
Yeah, a victory that sends them straight to the national championship.
You might be a diehard college football fan. Maybe you're just catching up on this crazy season.
Or hey, maybe you just love a good underdog story.
Whatever brought you here, get ready, because this game had it all.
You know, what's really captivating about this win is that it kind of embodies Notre Dame's whole season.
Right?
I mean, they faced setbacks, they defied expectations.
They really did.
And in the end, they proved just how resilient they are when it matters most.
For sure. And believe me, there are some seriously surprising twists in this story.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking a kicker battling back from, well, injuries and inconsistency.
Oh, wow.
To a game that went from a total snooze fest to an edge-of-your-seat thriller in, like, minutes.
Sounds intense.
It was.
There's also a key weakness on the Penn State side that might just leave you scratching your head.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay, good.
All right, so let's rewind to those final seconds in Miami. Picture this. Mitch Jeter steps up for a 41-yard field goal attempt.
Oh, okay.
The clock is ticking down. The weight of a national championship berth rests entirely on his shoulders. And he drills it.
No way.
Yes. Notre Dame 27, Penn State 24. Can you feel the intensity?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That kick secured Notre Dame's first shot at the title in 12 long years.
Wow, yeah.
And, you know, their last appearance was that crushing defeat against Alabama back in 2012. So You can imagine the pressure was immense.
Oh, I bet. Speaking of pressure, Mitch Jeter's journey this season, that's fascinating.
Really?
He wasn't just some veteran effortlessly knocking down field goals. He came into this game with an 11-for-18 record. And get this, Notre Dame was statistically the worst in the nation at field goals this season.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
So Jeter's struggles were like a microcosm of a larger issue.
Yeah.
That could have easily derailed their playoff hopes.
Absolutely. So to see him nail that game-winning kick, talk about a testament to his mental toughness.
It really makes you think about the mental side of sports, you know, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, to perform under immense pressure. Jeter's performance is a great example of that.
100%. And to fully appreciate his journey, you got to understand his backstory. He transferred from South Carolina.
Okay.
And he was actually quite reliable there, but then a groin injury took him out for a big chunk of the season.
Oh, no.
And it really impacted both his mechanics and his confidence.
So the talent was always there.
Always there.
Just hidden under a layer of bad luck and maybe some mental hurdles as well. But to recover late in the season, regain his form just in time for the playoffs, that's a crucial part of this victory.
For sure. It speaks volumes about his resilience and the impact of, coaching and support and helping players overcome adversity.
And it's not like he was just okay against Penn State. He was clutch.
Right.
Going a perfect 2-for-2 in such a tight game, and that's the stuff of legends.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most unlikely heroes emerge when the stakes are highest.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the game itself, because it was a tale of two halves.
Ooh, yeah.
The first half was a defensive struggle, only 13 total points, the kind of low-scoring affair that makes you wonder if you accidentally tuned into a baseball game.
Right. But then the second half, especially that fourth quarter, it was an absolute explosion of offense. 31 points in the fourth quarter alone. Talk about a dramatic shift in momentum.
Whoa, it was a complete turnaround. Notre Dame finally takes the lead for the first time. Then Penn State roars back with 14 unanswered points. Just when you think the Nittany Lions have it in the bag, boom. Jaden Greathouse makes this insane 54-yard touchdown catch to tie it up.
Dude, and we have to mention the two Penn State defenders who basically tripped over each other trying to cover him. It was almost comical, except with national championship implications hanging in the balance.
Right. And speaking of dramatic moments, let's rewind to the second quarter when Riley Leonard, Notre Dame's starting quarterback, takes a hard hit and heads straight to the medical tent for a concussion evaluation.
Oh, man. Talk about adding another layer of tension to an already intense game.
Right.
And while his absence certainly raised the stakes, backup Steve Angeli stepped up admirably, leading Notre Dame to a crucial field goal before halftime.
Yeah, he did good. And then in the third quarter, Leonard returns, cleared to play.
What a moment.
What a moment.
It really speaks to his toughness and determination.
Yeah.
Especially considering he went on to throw for 223 yards and that game-tying touchdown to Greathouse, despite throwing 2 interceptions earlier in the game.
And that brings us to a point that might surprise some people. Notre Dame wasn't winning solely with their ground game. In fact, their rushing attack was uncharacteristically ineffective against Penn State.
Oh, really?
They only managed 116 yards on 42 carries, a measly 2.8 yards per rush. This wasn't the dominant run-first team we've come to expect from Notre Dame.
Interesting. So they weren't playing their typical game.
Not at all. But they adapted and found a way to win. Leonard's passing, particularly that connection with Greathouse, who finished with 7 catches for 105 yards, proved they're more than just a one-dimensional offense.
Right, so they're more versatile than people might think.
Exactly. And this adaptability is key as they head into the national championship game. Opponents can't just stack the box and expect to shut down Notre Dame anymore.
Got it. So they've got more tricks up their sleeve.
Now let's dive into a crucial factor in Notre Dame's victory: their dominance on third down. This is where we often see the difference between a good team and a championship caliber team. Notre Dame converted 11 out of 17 third downs, including an incredible 8 of their last 11.
Wow, that is impressive.
It is.
Meanwhile, Penn State struggled mightily, converting only 3 out of 11 attempts. That's a huge difference.
It's huge. It highlights Notre Dame's offensive efficiency and their ability to sustain drives, especially in those crucial second-half moments when the pressure was on.
So they were able to keep those drives alive and keep the momentum going.
Exactly.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves and start talking, national championship scenarios, let's talk about a factor that might surprise you. Penn State's Achilles heel, and trust me, it's not what you might think.
Yeah, this is where things get intriguing. Penn State has so much offensive firepower, but their wide receivers were basically invisible in this game.
Wait, seriously? Are you saying that, not a single one of Drew Aller's 12 completions went to a wide receiver?
Not a single one. All his completions went to tight ends and running backs. It's a shocking stat for a team of Penn State's caliber.
So what does that tell us? Was it a strategic decision, or were the receivers just having an off day?
It points to a potential weakness, in their offensive strategy. Notre Dame, recognizing this vulnerability, they played aggressive man coverage, effectively shutting down Penn State's passing options and forcing them to rely almost entirely on their run game.
And while their running backs, especially Nick Singleton with his 3 touchdowns, put up a fight, it wasn't enough to overcome this lack of a receiving threat. So this begs the question, why were the receivers so ineffective?
Well, there are a few possible explanations. It could be a combination of coaching decisions, player matchups, or even the offensive scheme itself. Perhaps Penn State's game plan focused on exploiting Notre Dame's kind of perceived weakness against the run. Or maybe Notre Dame's defensive backs simply had a phenomenal game, shutting down Penn State's receivers one-on-one.
It's interesting to consider the what-ifs here. What if Penn State had managed to get their wide receivers more involved? Could that have changed the outcome of the game?
Absolutely. Having a multifaceted passing attack forces the defense to cover the entire field, opening up more opportunities for both the run and the pass. If Penn State had found a way to utilize their wide receivers effectively, they might have been able to keep Notre Dame's defense off balance and, generate more consistent offense.
And looking ahead, this weakness could pose a serious challenge for Penn State as they, aim for a national title in 2025. Allar will be back, but they desperately need to develop their wide receiver core if they want to compete at the highest level.
All right, now let's dive a little deeper into some of the tactical nuances that shaped Notre Dame's victory. Beyond the highlights and dramatic moments, subtle strategic choices played a significant role in their success. One thing that really stood out to me was Notre Dame's defensive game plan, particularly how they neutralized Penn State's rushing attack in the second half. Remember, Nick Singleton had 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone.
Oh, yeah. It seemed like early on, Penn State's offensive line was just steamrolling Notre Dame's front 7.
But then, in the second half, we saw a shift. Notre Dame started utilizing more aggressive blitzes, specifically A-gap blitzes, sending linebackers right through the center of the offensive line. This forced Allar to make quick decisions and disrupted Penn State's offensive rhythm.
So they basically said, all right, we're going to take our chances with Allar beating us through the air, but we're not going to let them run all over us. But wasn't that a risky move, considering Allar's potential, even with his inconsistencies?
It was a calculated risk, for sure. Blitzing leaves your secondary more vulnerable to big plays, if the quarterback has time to find an open receiver. But Notre Dame's defensive coordinator likely felt confident that their secondary could handle Penn State's receivers, given their struggles in the game, and the gamble paid off. Notre Dame's defense tightened up and contained Penn State's rushing attack just enough to kind of swing the momentum back in their favor.
And this is where that third down dominance we talked about earlier becomes even more critical, right? By consistently getting off the field on third down, Notre Dame's defense gave their offense more opportunities to score, eventually wearing down Penn State's defense.
It's a classic example of complementary football. The offense and defense working in sync, feeding off each other's success to create a winning formula.
Okay, let's talk about Mitch Sheeter for a moment. We already touched on his struggles earlier this season, but his performance in the Orange Bowl deserves a closer look. It wasn't just about making those 2 kicks, it was about the mental fortitude he displayed under such intense pressure.
Yeah. What's remarkable is that after missing a field goal in the first quarter, he could have easily crumbled under the weight of, his past struggles, the national spotlight, and the sheer magnitude of the game.
It's easy to let those doubts creep in, right?
Yep.
And affect your performance, especially in such a high-stakes situation.
Exactly. But instead of dwelling on that miss, he bounced back. Not only did he make his next field goal attempt, but he nailed the game winner with ice in his veins. Think about the mental toughness that takes.
It really highlights the power of the mind in sports. His ability to compartmentalize, to focus on the task at hand, and not let that early miss define him, is truly impressive.
It's a testament to his preparation, his focus, and his ability to compartmentalize. He used that early miss as fuel to come back even stronger. And you can't underestimate the impact this has on Notre Dame's confidence going forward. Knowing they have a kicker who can handle the pressure in clutch moments is a huge asset.
Absolutely. It removes a lot of doubt and allows the team to play with more freedom, knowing they have a reliable weapon in their arsenal. But let's not forget about Penn State. They came into this game with championship aspirations of their own. What were some of the key factors that contributed to their loss?
Well, as we've discussed, their inability to establish a consistent passing game was a major factor. But beyond that, I think a few critical errors ultimately cost them the game.
Like what, for example?
Well, that interception by Allera in the final minute was a killer. It gave Notre Dame excellent field position and set up Jeter's game-winning kick.
It almost felt like Penn State panicked a bit, trying to force a play instead of sticking to, smart situational football.
That's a great point. You could sense the urgency, and perhaps that urgency led to a decision that, in hindsight, wasn't the best. And then there was their decision to kick a field goal early in the fourth quarter instead of going for it on fourth down. They were only trailing by 4 points at the time, and a touchdown would have given them the lead.
So looking back, that field goal might have been too conservative a call, especially given the momentum Notre Dame was building at that point.
It's debatable, of course. Coaches have to weigh various factors in those situations. Field position, time remaining, their confidence in their offense. But in a game this tight, every point matters. That missed opportunity to potentially take the lead could very well have changed the outcome.
So it sounds like a combination of strategic missteps, missed opportunities, and that inability to get their wide receivers involved ultimately led to Penn State's downfall.
That's a fair assessment. However, let's not forget that Penn State is a young team with a bright future ahead of them. Allard, despite his struggles in this game, has the potential to be a star quarterback.
And they have a strong foundation in place with talented players on both sides of the ball.
Right. I wouldn't count them out just yet. But for now, the spotlight belongs to Notre Dame. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's address the big question that's been swirling around ever since Notre Dame punched their ticket to the national championship. Can they actually win it all?
It's the question on everyone's mind, isn't it? It's tempting to look at their recent history, their struggles against top-tier opponents, and have doubts.
Yeah.
But there's something different about this team.
They've demonstrated a resilience and determination that we haven't seen from Notre Dame in years. They've battled through adversity, overcome injuries, and found ways to win even when they weren't playing their best football.
And let's not forget the momentum they're carrying into the championship game. They're riding a 13-game winning streak. Their longest since 1988, the last time they won a national title.
So, to answer your question, yes, I believe they have a chance. A real chance. It won't be easy, of course. They'll likely face a formidable opponent and need to play their best game of the season to come out on top. But this Notre Dame team has proven time and again that they're capable of defying expectations.
Well, I'm not betting against them. This has been a magical season for Notre Dame, and who knows, maybe this is just the beginning.
That's the beauty of college football, right? The unpredictability, the drama, the passion, the intensity. You never know what's going to happen.
All right, we've really broken down Notre Dame's thrilling Orange Bowl victory and unpacked those key factors that got them there. But now the big question looms.
Yeah.
Can they go all the way and claim the national title? To answer that, we got to break down their national championship opponent, the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, this matchup is particularly interesting because if you think back to the start of the season, nobody predicted this.
Right.
Notre Dame had to overcome so much doubt, and Texas. They weren't even considered contenders.
Right. It's a clash of styles. It's a battle between two programs steeped in tradition.
Yeah.
And a chance for both teams to, solidify their place in college football history. It's the kind of matchup that makes this sport so compelling. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And what makes it even more exciting is that we have two teams who've really embraced the underdog role.
Okay.
And now they find themselves on the brink of achieving something truly remarkable.
Okay, so let's talk strategy. What are the key matchups to watch for in this game? What should we be paying attention to?
Well, on the offensive side of the ball, it all starts with Notre Dame's rushing attack versus Texas's formidable defensive line. I mean, the Longhorns boast one of the best defensive fronts in the nation, anchored by a couple of guys who were projected to be top NFL draft picks.
So how do you think Notre Dame's offensive line, which, has been a bit inconsistent this season, will hold up against that kind of pressure? That seems like a crucial matchup to me.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head there. If Notre Dame can establish a consistent ground game, control the clock, and, keep Texas's offense off the field, they'll have a real shot. It's classic, ball control football. But if they get bogged down and become one-dimensional, relying solely on Rayleigh Leonard's arm, it could be a long night for the Irish.
And speaking of Leonard, how do you see him matching up against Texas's secondary, which is also considered one of the best in the country?
Yeah.
I remember those 2 interceptions he threw against Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
Those mistakes could be costly against a defense like Texas's.
That's a great point. Leonard has had moments of brilliance this season, but he's also prone to, making mistakes, especially when he's under pressure.
Yeah.
Texas's defensive backs are aggressive and opportunistic, and you can bet they'll be looking to, force him into those same types of errors.
So it sounds like for Notre Dame to win, Leonard needs to play a clean game, protect the ball, and make smart decisions with his throws.
No pressure.
Right.
Right, exactly. It's a tall order, but he's shown he can rise to the occasion. Now, we can't forget about Texas's offense, which can be absolutely explosive. Their quarterback, Quinn Ewers, is a dual-threat talent who can hurt you with both his arm and his legs.
And he's got plenty of weapons around him.
Okay.
Speedy wide receivers, a bruising running back, and a tight end who creates mismatches all over the field. It's a potent offensive attack.
Oh, it is. And that's the challenge for Notre Dame's defense.
Right.
How do they contain Ewers, prevent those big plays, and, force Texas into long, sustained drives?
Man, that seems like a monumental task,
Yeah.
Against a team that can score points in bunches.
It is.
So this game has all the makings of a classic. High-powered offense versus a stingy defense, a battle of wits between two brilliant coaches, and a chance for both teams to etch their names into the history books as national champions.
Oh, it's going to be a thriller, that's for sure. So after all this analysis, let's get down to the big question. Who do you think wins this thing?
Okay, put you on the spot. Prediction time. Give me your expert analysis. Who's hoisting that trophy at the end of the night?
Well, both teams have clear strengths, some potential weaknesses. Notre Dame's resilience and ability to control the clock could be decisive factors. But on the flip side, Texas's offensive firepower and defensive prowess they're undeniable. Honestly, it's a tough call.
So are you going to play it safe and say it's a toss-up?
Not quite. I'm leaning slightly towards Texas. I think their overall talent and experience, particularly at the quarterback position, might give them the edge. However, Notre Dame has already defied the odds so many times this season.
Right. That underdog spirit is hard to quantify, isn't it? Maybe they can pull off one more upset for the ages.
That's what makes college football so captivating. The unpredictability, the passion, the sheer will to win, it's all part of the magic. No matter who wins, this national championship game is going to be one for the ages, a spectacle we won't soon forget.
Exactly. Even if you're not a fan of either team, there's something special about, witnessing history in the making. Seeing these athletes leave everything on the field in pursuit of a national championship.
It's a moment that transcends team loyalty. It's about the culmination of a season's worth of, hard work, dedication, and the pursuit of excellence.
Well said. So there you have it. our deep dive into the national championship matchup between Notre Dame and Texas. We've analyzed the key matchups, discussed strategic nuances, and even offered our predictions. But ultimately, it's up to these two teams to write the final chapter of this incredible college football season.
And no matter what happens, win or lose, it's important to appreciate the journey, the dedication, and the sheer athletic brilliance that has brought us to this point.
Couldn't agree more. And with that, we wrap up another deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed our analysis and perhaps even gained a new perspective on this thrilling matchup.
As always, we encourage you to keep exploring, to delve deeper into the stories and the data that shape the world of sports. The more we learn, the more we realize how much more there is to discover.
So until next time, stay curious and keep diving.